Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, captains, first mates, and space seamen of all ages, we welcome you all to the wonderful world of Walt Disney's Animation Studios. So excited for this. This is the third movie out of 3 that we will be doing reviewing in the post-Renaissance era of Disney. We are out of order. We did Brother Bear before this, which comes out after this. It's fine. We explained it in that episode. Go back and listen. I'm Joshua Noel. I am here with the one, the only, the magnificent Christian Ashley, and we're doing a special episode today where me and Christian are going to listen to TJ Blackwell talk about Treasure Planet.
It is his autobiography.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, you guys may have noticed we've done Treasure Planet before on this show. We have reviewed it once before with Joe Day. The big difference there, of course, was that it was Joe listening to TJ talk about Treasure Planet. And this time it's going to be me and Christian listening to TJ talk about Treasure Planet. No, the big difference is this is part of our Disney era series. So we're going to kind of contextualize it in the history of Disney animation. Again, I'm Joshua Noel. Lately, I've been geeking out on a lot of stuff, but I'm going to throw out Greg McDonald. I've recently discovered a lot of how he has influenced Tolkien and Lewis's work, and I was like, oh, let me check it out. And I've just been reading just a ton of fairy tales. It's so much fun. It's so good. It's nice. Christian, what have you been geeking out on lately?
The newest Ultraman series, Ultraman Arc, just came out not too long ago, so I've been enjoying that.
All right. And TJ, how often do you watch Treasure Planet while playing Valorant?
I've done it a couple of times.
I figured.
I'm watching it right now.
So is that what you're geeking out on? Just exactly what we're talking about?
I mean, I feel like it's fair to say I haven't picked up anything new recently. So
yes, you should read more George McDonald. It's great. Yeah. Anyway, hey guys, make sure you rate and review the show on Podchaser or Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're on Spotify, you can hit the little 3 dots. It gives you a rating option. Apple Podcasts, you scroll down to the bottom where you can rate and review. But if you are on a laptop or computer, podchaser.com, that helps the most with the algorithms. If you fill out a rate and review over there, we really appreciate it. Of course, we do want to thank one of our supporters, Trip Fuller. You're amazing. And we want to remind everybody, if you want your own shout out, you can also support the show on Patreon, Captivate, or Apple Podcast. Again, this is part of our Disney era series. So if you want to catch the whole playlist where we're doing a few different movies from each era of Disney and just kind of see contextualizing our animated films and why they're important to the history of Disney and how we just love them. And this is kind of like a callback. Like a year and a half ago, this same team, me, Christian, and TJ were in the beginning of this series, or early on in the series, talking about the 3 Caballeros. And really, TJ only ever agreed to do this podcast for this episode. He's been waiting to talk about Treasure Planet.
Mm-hmm. I'm resigning immediately after this.
And with that, we're going to jump into the episode. Oh, man, this is great. I'm so excited. We're going to let TJ do most of the talking because that just seems right. TJ, could you tell us why, out of all the post-Renaissance films, why do you think we chose this film instead of any of the other ones, like Lilo and Stitch, for example?
Political demands, I think, is the most accurate way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that just a fancy way of saying TJ forced us to make this?
Not talking about Treasure Planet wasn't an option we had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I think Christian has also said that once
I've
before.
also threatened to leave the show if we didn't cover this.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. I have always liked Treasure Planet. I never loved it the way that TJ did, but I have, every time I've watched it, found new reasons to love it more. And watching it for the show, I've come up with a lot of new reasons to love it more. Like I'm saying, like in my rating, like 0 to 10 for Disney movies, and you got to think again, rating, I'm comparing. 0 being the worst Disney movie is still like way better than most movies. If you're me specifically, I'm just putting that out because this has gone up two whole ratings, I think, after watching it for this specific podcast, having to actually like think about it and look at it. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's way more to this movie than I thought there was. Yeah, pretty great.
Yeah, well, this is probably Disney's best movie, so naturally we're going to talk about this one.
If I'm evaluating it, not just doing like my favorites, I'd probably put it at like Disney's third best, personally. But we'll talk about that later. We should do a listing episode for that.
Sounds like fun.
Not part of our eras. Yeah. So what's everyone's relationship with this film? Like, when's the first time you remember seeing it, or like, I don't know, any of that kind of stuff? I know that I just kind of saw it in the theater. Post-Renaissance was kind of that era where I was starting to get a little too old for Disney, air quotes, you know? So it's like, yeah, I'll watch it, but I wasn't like, oh yeah, Disney movie. You know, I was like, yeah, I'm going to watch it. It was Pirates, so that was a plus. But it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't until TJ started being in my life and saying, no, Treasure Planet is the best movie, that I had to rewatch it more and go, TJ makes some great points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't
You
really.
look like you're about to say something.
I don't remember the first time I watched Treasure Planet, which might sound shocking.
No, for some reason, in my mind, canon is before TJ was born, in the beginning, before time, he had seen Treasure Planet. And that is when God asked him if he wanted to exist. And he was like, I mean, I guess if that's down there, that's sure.
No.
Yeah.
No,
He came to watch Treasure Planet.
Once again, this is on the
And do
TJ
podcast.
project. This is his autobiography. That's why he and Jim Hawkins look the same, because they are one and the same. And you know, TJ never watches or listens to anything he's in. So he's lying and he's watched it. He just knows it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all a ploy. I have never seen Treasure Planet, and definitely not right now.
Yeah.
I also, until this moment, did not realize TJ does kind of
That's
look
all I
like,
could think of yesterday.
like, this is
It was
hurting my brain.
distracting. It was immensely distracting.
TJ is the main character. Who knew?
Yeah. I didn't for a long time.
You didn't know that you were the
I didn't
main
look like
character.
It was at a different regeneration.
Allegedly.
Yeah. When I was his
Christian,
age,
what was your relationship with this film?
I always have mixed memories with this and Titan AE. They're similar films in some respects. So I think Titan AE came out first, like by 2 years or something. So I definitely watched this when it came out, and I think 2002, because still was at that point in my life where I wasn't that. I'm too old for Disney. This is like, yeah, I'm still in it to win it, and I remember loving this film and wondering why I never saw more of it in the world, and learning later about the box office and everything.
Mm-hmm. Titan AE is also a pretty good movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I also there are many things TJ says that I'm sort of skeptical of. He says I'm the luckiest man alive. I'm skeptical of that. He says that Super Smash Bros. Specifically on my Switch hates him. I'm pretty skeptical that video games can have favorites.
Someone who played with his controls last time I was down at your place.
But I'm buying into your Treasure Planet. But I'm starting to buy into the Treasure Planet conspiracy. Do you want to break that down for those?
Oh, like the actual? Okay, I thought you were talking about me being.
Like, I think you're just correct
in the movie.
No, that's true.
canon.
Also,
Yeah. So
different.
if you're unfamiliar, the reason that Disney movies don't look like this is because they didn't want them to. I'm going to introduce this as fact because it is one. This, at the time, was the most expensive animated movie ever produced. I think it cost $192 million.
Big boy money.
Big boy
That's how
money.
much it
Huge boy
cost.
money. Even for Disney.
Mhm.
Especially in 2001 when they were producing it. But they knew that. They knew this was expensive because they were using deep canvas, which is super cool technology from back when Disney used to invent things. But it allowed them to paint a background and have a 3D world interact with the background, which is why Treasure Planet looks so special, because almost the entire movie was made in deep canvas. The only other movie they use this in is Tarzan for the vine surfing. That's in deep canvas, and that's why those scenes are so dynamic, because That is, Tarzan is a 2D model surfing on a 3D object, but it's super expensive to do. You have to hire a bunch of artists, and the actual processing power it takes is massive. So,
Yeah.
in an effort to make this seem not worth it, they decided to tank Treasure Planet intentionally. How? Well, this came out the year before Lilo and Stitch, or the same year as Lilo and Stitch. And they did not advertise Treasure Planet. They only advertised Lilo and Stitch. I have seen a couple of Treasure Planet like ads in my life. Almost all of them, as far as I can remember, all of them were on other Disney DVDs, and it was the coming soon, the home video, and then a little Treasure Planet clip. But Lilo and Stitch got all the TV spots, radio commercials, all of it, because Lilo and Stitch didn't cost that much. And they were pretty confident that it would still make a lot of money.
And it did.
And it did. And there, it's also really good. I love Lilo and Stitch.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna break down. There are other reasons they sabotaged it too, I think. And also that it did poorly that we'll talk about later. But yeah, that's the main thing. And at first I thought he was crazy. The more I watch it, I think he's right. And supporting evidence, there is, Disney likes to do cameos. There's a total of one other Disney character that you can find in Treasure Planet. It's Stitch. There's a toy Stitch in Jim Harkins' room. They just were even pushing Lilo and Stitch in the movie.
Well, Korg is in there.
Who?
Korg from Guardians.
No,
That's a Disney
That does not count. Stop that. Oh, man. Okay, moving on. We're just going to keep throwing it to TJ. TJ, tell us the story of this film. Give us the quickest summary that a TJ can muster about Treasure
what you remember from being on the set.
Yeah.
If you want me to make it as fast as possible.
No. As fast as TJ possible. Because in my mind, this is close enough to you that you can't do it as fast as normal because it's still Treasure Planet.
So
I could be wrong.
a pirate washes up at our main character's family inn, passes away, and leaves him a map to Treasure Planet. And then he starts his journey to find Treasure Planet to fund his and his mother's life.
And he meets one of the coolest Disney characters ever along the way who turns out to be a bad guy.
Yeah, it's also in space.
Sort of.
Super gorgeous.
God, do you know? We'll get to that later. I have so many like things I've learned. I was like doing research and watching this. I'm like, holy crap, this movie is just so freaking cool. But before we get to the nitty gritty, I want to go ahead and do get to the punch of it. 0 to 10. How are we rating this? I knew TJ's answer. Yeah. Are you sure you don't want to do 11 out of 10?
That's not allowed.
Oh, okay. I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10. Because again, I'm comparing it to other Disney. There are exactly two that I personally find better if I'm also including just how much I enjoy them. The only two I would say is Jungle Book and Hercules. Everything else, I think it's maybe as good or worse than Treasure Planet, even if I enjoy it more. Because Treasure Planet is just so good. Christian.
I also throw this one a 9.5. I really enjoy this one. It's not my favorite Disney movie, but the ones I have above it, I'll say are my 10 out of 10s. But this one, it's pretty dang close. If there had been a bit more polish to it, if it gotten maybe a little bit more of characterization for certain people, I think this would definitely be a 10, especially if we'd gotten like a series out of this.
Yeah.
We would have.
Okay.
If they weren't so gosh darn greedy.
Disney being greedy, that's impossible.
No way. So going back to the art and animation stuff, TJ already kind of talked about what deep canvas is, and that was like a huge part of this film. Tarzan did it for a couple things. This did it for basically all the movie, which was incredible. Especially when you're watching just that first like scene of Jim Hopkins on the solar surfboard thing. I can't think of what it's called. Looks so freaking cool. But also, we mentioned this in the Brother Bear episode. I really love when the medium itself is telling part of the story. So like how in Brother Bear, the ratio changes whenever he becomes a bear, like the actual screen itself just changes. So in this one of the coolest things is how they use CGI. All of the characters were actually hand drawn, except for they just drew around robot parts. So like the cyborg, all hand drawn, except for his robot parts that are CGI. Ben, the robot, was all CGI. So like all the robot bits actually felt different. Like it felt more robotic because they actually did it in a different medium completely and just drew around it. And like watching it, look, I was seeing that and I was like, oh, wow. That's why this movie, like, to me, I think it does. Like, you could not have done better at creating an aesthetic that both feels like old time sailors and also still feels sci-fi future at the same time. And it's like, that's just the way they pulled that off. Absolutely magnificent.
Yeah. I don't think they did it for every robot part, though. I think the only robot part they didn't do it for was Silver's eye.
Yeah, I was
Silver's
unsure
eye is
about
2D
that.
most of the time.
But
there are a couple of scenes where I'm pretty sure it's CGI.
And it looks so good. Like, it doesn't stand out so much that you're like, oh man, that looks tacky. Like, it just feels different. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. So cool though. Also, one of Disney's last 2D films, because Disney was convinced 2D was dying, and we mentioned before, Brother Bear was like the last one. They were like, until they brought back Princess and the Frog. They were like, oh, yep, 2D is dead. They were wrong, but I'm glad that they realized they were wrong, sort of in the long run.
Yeah. They came around.
Wish could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Wish was it was absolutely beautifully drawn. They just had a terrible antagonist.
I'll second that.
Like if they would have had like a Hades or a Jafar kind of bad guy, it could have been a good movie.
Yeah, what's his name? Lex Charisma. That's how much I remember him.
Yeah, just completely unremembered. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Did you guys notice anything else with the art animation, specifically in Treasure Planet?
It's basically flawless.
That's basically true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I enjoy our set designs a lot. I mean, if there are our alien planets, Montresor spaceport, like just going through space itself into the ether, going on that idea of traveling through space, imagining like some scientists did back in the day that there was just a pocket where there'd be a place where you could do that and still breathe air. Like they do a magnificent job of incorporating these ideas into this film through just artwork alone.
Yeah, like it's so just absolutely beautiful. Whenever doing the research for this one too, I think what really blew my mind, a lot of the previous Disney films we've done, you could pretty easily just look up supervising animator. You can still find it with this. It's a little bit harder because every single character had an entire animation team assigned to them. Like there were so many people who worked on this film because it was just that difficult to make the art look the way that it does. And usually in my mind, when I see that many people working on a project, I'm like, oh no, because people butt heads and stuff. No, they just executed it flawlessly. It just so good.
Yeah, that's what you get with perfect art direction.
That's true, apparently. So on to some of the other history and just kind of fun facts about the film. And I say fun facts. The history behind it does make me love it like way more even. So John Musker and Ron Clements, we mentioned them before. Their first real project was Great Mouse Detective. TJ and I did that one. They also worked on Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Treasure Planet, and then Moana. So John Musker and Ron Clements were some of the last people to work with any of Disney's 9 old men. So you're kind of just seeing that original legacy of Disney carry on with these animators, even into Moana. So some of the more recent Disney stuff as well. What I love too, that I found out doing the research, that I'm unsure how, like, if TJ knows this, but I think it's great. They did Great Mouse Detective and immediately pitched, hey, what if we did Treasure Island, but in space? And Disney was like, nah, that won't work. And then they did Little Mermaid and said, hey, we did another banger. What if we did Treasure Island in space? And Disney said no. And then they did Aladdin and said, okay, but what if we did Treasure Island in space? And Disney basically made the deal and said, if you'll do Hercules, we'll give you Treasure Island in space. And they said, all right, bet. Turned out Disney's absolute best, my favorite Disney movie, Hercules, partially because of like the animators and stuff that they got. And I think the reason Hercules was so good, part of it was because they were trying to make a point. They're like, yeah, we can actually just make the best Disney movies. And then they just went and did it.
Yeah, it's true.
Twice.
It's true. Man, Treasure Planet's so special.
It's great. Also, another fun bit, they had help writing this one. And this is what really got me excited about this movie. So if you don't know, which also is part of why I think Disney kind of tanked this, there was for a long time believed to be a pirate curse in Hollywood, that every single pirate movie failed. All of them flopped since like the 50s, which is part of why Disney didn't want to make a pirate movie until Treasure Planet, and it did so well that they gave these code. It did so well. It didn't do well. It flopped, but it was a good proof of concept, which is why they allowed people to go and write the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which actually did break the pirate's curse. You know, whatever. So just fascinating. So Ted Elliott, Terry Rossio, they also helped write Aladdin. They also wrote Shrek. And then after this movie, were given permission to go write the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which is one of my favorite franchises, which simply would not exist without Treasure Planet, it turns out.
Yeah. We almost
so
talked about Shrek instead of Surf's Up.
Yeah, that would have been good. I love both, though. Yeah. So one of my favorite movies was created so that they could make Treasure Planet. And then one of my favorite movie franchises was created as a result of Treasure Planet. That's what I learned doing my research for this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seems wrong to give it anything less than I think I need to change my rating to 9.9. I still just can't put it quite the same as Hercules. But it's so close.
Just find a number and stick to it, you coward.
I am a coward.
Hello, friends. Are you enjoying what you're hearing from Systematic Ecology today in your earbuds, or whether it's on YouTube, or whether you're in traffic, or whether you're at work? Well, there's another way that you can stay engaged with us at Systematic Ecology, and that's on our Instagram account. Yes, hop over to Instagram, follow. We'll follow back. We promise. We post lots of fun stuff over there, whether they're updates on new podcasts that are coming out or getting ready to come out, or whether they're memes, or we're sharing what other of our friends are up to out in the world. Sometimes we go live at events, whether we're at a Comic-Con or whether we are just hanging out with friends on the back porch grilling out. You can follow us there. We also have videos and reels, like what's in Will's pull box from his local comic book store. He shares what he's reading in the world of comics. And then Christian is going to do some reviews of Spider-Man comics called Spidey Swing Bys. That's going to be fun. And then there's non-canon stuff. Non-canon? What? Yeah, Joshua's going to be reviewing one intellectual property from outside of the canon of his favorite fandoms, or a piece of literature that's a part of the biblical extra-canonical material. Man, that sounds like fun. But yeah, Instagram is one of my favorite social media outlets, and love to engage with friends and family over there. And so we hope that you can engage with us there.
So anyway, did you guys have anything else that you knew or thought was interesting about the history and production of the film before we move on?
It's actually based on a book.
Yes.
What?
It's actually
Who
based
knew?
on an earlier movie, Muppet Treasure Island, which in itself is based on an earlier book, Treasure Island.
Oh, I thought Muppets Treasure Island was based on the Treasure Island movie that Disney did.
Nah.
Yeah. Every adaptation of Treasure Island is better than the last, except
Accurate.
that first movie. I don't think the first movie is better than the book. But
I
the
mean, yeah.
Muppets movie definitely is.
No, it's not better than the book.
Yeah, it is.
I'd agree.
The book doesn't have the
But
Muppets
also,
in it.
one thing that I do love that Treasure Island did too, that I just want to mention it real quick. In the book, Ben is an old man on the island when they first get to the island, who is just like gone insane. And the fact that the way that they incorporated that in this movie was, what if it was a robot that's been here for thousands of years who literally just lost his brain? Or just like the creativity of that. So like just
Or
genius.
we could gender flip it
the
into a female
creativity-
pig, and there we go.
Yeah.
It's the superior option.
Just the creativity that you can just see dripping off of the movie is incredible. The cast you get introduced to is absolutely absurd. So many different, just one-off aliens for no reason.
I think too what's really cool is like how I like how much of this is just us like trying to do the outline and then stopping and just gushing about the movie. But like the space scenes feel very much oceany, if that makes sense. Like you see like ocean creatures and stuff in space, and you're like, oh wow, this really does feel like Treasure Island. And then the stuff that's like usually like ocean, like, you know, like we're gonna get to the island, or even like the inn at the beginning, also feels very alien because there are so many aliens there. Like they do such a good job at blending those two things. Like it's just its own aesthetic. Like there isn't something. It's like trying to say what do bananas taste like. I mean, they taste like bananas. Treasure Planet just kind of has its completely own aesthetic, and it's incredible.
It's so special, and it's great science fiction. It has science that is real and elevates it further. Like the way the ships work is with solar sails, but solar sails exist. They don't do what they do in Treasure Planet. In real life, solar sails just catch photons and go, like regular sails. And they're kind of working on doing what they do in Treasure Planet, which is charging batteries,
Yeah.
charging themselves, so that they can have actual propulsion in addition to solar sails. But it is just so incredible to watch it happen in Treasure Planet. They spread the sails. You can watch them absorbing sunlight and charging batteries. And then
It's great.
it's powering the motors. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Two other things on that note. One is we talked about earlier, like how like the comparison of Star Wars and Star Trek is like really comparing sci-fi and science fantasy. This is both. This is sci-fi and science fantasy. It does both in such a cool way. Also, though, the way they do space and like how like the colors in space look and how it's like really almost vibrant and just pretty and kind of made me think of the way that Lewis described space in the Space Trilogy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lore
just a little like that's kind of cool. Oh
yeah. Space in Treasure Planet is called the Aether Sphere. It's not the same. It's actually breathable.
Yes.
But with no gravity.
It's based on an old scientific idea of what we thought space might be like until eventually science marched on and we found not exactly habitable for humanity.
Gotcha.
The only thing the only thing they have to deal with is the lack of gravity, which they do. They have artificial gravity on the boats.
Which also the ability to turn on and off gravity led to a bunch of other scenes that were just like the animation in it was like truly, I don't think you could stop unless you go scene by scene. You could talk about how incredible the animation is in every single scene. I think like it's all done so well.
Also, some of the best montages in any Disney movie. I won't say it has the best one because of Hercules.
It might though. I do like that too. I think I like the montage in this better.
Wow, what a betrayal! Stab in the back.
I just like Hercules art and music better mostly, and characters. I like Hercules characters a lot better. But that's not what this episode is. This isn't a versus episode. We'll do that next year. Josh versus TJ, Treasure Planet or Hercules, which very easily could just turn into us both talking about how both movies are incredible and mine's more incredible, which might just not be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
we might do it anyway. We'll see. One thing we really do with our Disney movie reviews, our Disney era reviews, we want to discuss everyone's favorite scene, song, and character from the movie. Songs, I'm including themes. I actually listened through all of the Treasure Planet soundtrack earlier for this. Also just shocked how good that was. Perfect. It's just pretty much a perfect movie. I think it might be a perfect movie and still not Disney's best somehow. Just crazy. Yeah. Disney's so good. Yeah. Scene, song, character. Christian, would you like to go first with your favorite scene, favorite song, and favorite character in the Treasure Planet film?
I'm going to give near the very end where they finally found the treasure of Treasure Planet, and the Silverhead accidentally set off an alarm, not knowing any better, and that's causing all his treasure to be destroyed, the planet itself to be destroyed, because Captain Flint does not want anyone to have his treasure at the end. And he has a moment where he could save a ship full of gold that could also potentially get him to safety, or he could save Jim, the boy that he's slowly evolved into having like a father-son relationship with him. And he gives up everything he sought over for years for the sake of his new pseudo son. And that's such a great character moment for him. I really enjoy that immensely. Go ahead.
No, it's just so good.
Song, I didn't really pay too much attention to the soundtrack. There's only one that I remember actually being sung out loud, and that's like the montage kind of scene with Jim, and that's a very good song. So I don't really think about soundtracks much to begin with. So with this film, that's really what stood out to me, was when there was actual lyrics behind it. Then character, it's hard not to say John Silver because he's such dynamic in this film. But for the sake of not saying him again in one of this, I will say Captain Amelia. I really enjoyed her. the stiff upper lip, being a consummate professional, and yet at the same time showing some vulnerability as a person, with her scenes with Dr. Doppler and the two of them like beginning their relationship. I enjoy her a lot.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. There might just not be any wrong answers to this.
I don't think there are any.
TJ, do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Say the best for last?
Sure.
Okay. I am going to just take the easy way out. John Silver is the best character. I love him. He's great. Which leads to my favorite scene. John Silver's speech to Jim when he's the makings of greatness in you speech. Especially, it's because like at that point in the film, there's so much conflict in him, and the way it's animated, you could tell where like he truly does believe what he's telling Jim, but at the same time has this like inner conflict of like not like he wants to be this figure to Jim, but also knows that he can't because he spent so much of his life pursuing this other thing. So seeing that conflict and that inner struggle in him while he's giving such a brilliant speech, God, fantastic. And then song, I thought for sure I was just going to talk about the song at the beginning when he's on the surfboard because like it's such a good song. And then I listened to the soundtrack, and Silver's theme actually also is just the best thing. It's just such a like sea shanty kind of song. Like it's like, wow, this is like all the pirate vibes. And if you know me, pirates are my jam. And I'm like, yeah, this is good. I could just listen to in fact, I did listen to it on repeat for a little bit while I was cutting like 30 pounds of onions earlier today. It was great. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah.
DJ.
So the supernova just happened, if you're familiar. And I am watching the movie right now. For me, my favorite song is definitely I'm Still Here. That's the montage song. I listen to it all the time. It plays
Great song.
at least, well, not once a day, but at least once every other day. I listen to it. Characters, man, impossible choice. I'm going to say Morph.
I like it.
I would say solid choice, but that's wrong because he's not.
Yeah, he's a very fluid choice.
Funny.
I think it's probably not recency bias to say that the supernova scene is my favorite.
TJ said, whatever scene that I am currently watching is my favorite scene.
But it really is.
That scene where the movie begins, I like that one all the way up until where the movie ends. That was a really good scene.
I do. It's actually really true. But
one
the
long
supernova scene is amazing. If you go back and watch it, what happens is the supernova, they're going near a star. It's called the Nebusa star or something like that. But it goes supernova, and then it devolves into a black hole, and they have to deal with both of those back to back, which is great. It's space adventure. What's scary in space? Explosions and black holes. We're going to do both right now. Excellent choice. It works amazingly. And watching the crew try to deal with a supernova, manning cannons, blowing up pieces of something. I don't know. It's a star that went supernova. There shouldn't be pieces of anything. But this is their world, not ours. So that's just how stars work.
One flaw in this movie.
Sweet magical science.
No, it's perfect. But it's gorgeous watching the crew, who, by the way, actually has no interest in helping the captain or Jim or the doctor because they're pirates. Spoiler alert.
What?
They have to fend for their own lives and help the ship. And despite this, they still take the time to kill off one of our main characters. Or, well, I guess he's not a main character. They all feel like the main character to me.
Yeah.
What
They
a
do a pretty
sad
good
death.
job with that, I feel like. Yeah, that's one of Disney's hardest deaths to deal with, I feel like. Because usually when a death happens, it's like so early on, you have no idea who the character is, and it's just, oh, sad death. We'll talk about that the rest of the movie, but you'll never know the character. This one, you got to know the character enough that it was actually a little like just, oh, man, that was rough.
Yeah, which it really, I'm glad it's not, it is science fiction and not science. Because if you were to watch somebody fall into a black hole in real life, you'd see them fall forever. You'd be able to look at them for the rest of your life, falling to their death.
Because you'd be joining them.
Well, luckily, we do know he doesn't die. He comes back in the second Thor movie, I believe, or third Thor movie.
With a completely different personality and
As
voice
Grodd.
actor.
Yeah, the same character, though.
Yeah.
It's canon. It's just as canon as the fact that TJ is Jim Hawkins. So
Yeah, wormhole theory, black holes. He just went over there.
yeah.
Simple science.
Went to a different universe. Yeah. So we do want to list some of where you can see some characters in this movie and other shows or places in Disney parks, which is basically none because, you know, it flopped and Disney tried to act like the movie didn't happen and then realized that they messed up and stopped doing that. But I don't know. Disney has a weird relationship with this movie. But Jim and Ben have both been seen on really like extremely rare occasions in Tomorrowland. The most recent I could find was 2020, pre-pandemic. So like January, February of 2020, people saw Jim and Ben in Tomorrowland at Disney World. That's pretty much it. So I want to ask instead, how would we choose to use Treasure Planet in the parks? Like if we could put Treasure Planet anywhere we wanted in Disney parks, ride, scene, land, whatever, what would you do? I have an answer already prepared if you guys need time to think.
It's okay. I only needed like 1 second.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot you could do with Treasure Planet.
Yes.
4D experiences, dark rides, thrill rides. Literally, Treasure Planet has material to make any kind of ride that you could make at Disney World, at any of the parks, except maybe Animal Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, you know, if you did like an alien safari, I'd be in it. That'd be fun.
You don't have photos with Mr.
yeah.
Screw?
Immersion breaking. Yeah, that would be. I'd kill him. So, I think the best one though would be kind of like a hybrid, kind of like the Guardians ride.
Yeah, good
That's
ride.
ideal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking
That would
kind of
be
on a
ideal.
similar level, but to have the roller coaster be based around the escape from Treasure Planet at the very end of the movie, where explosions are going off.
That
Like
would be
you're
fun.
in that ship trying to get out of the portal to the right spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a much weirder one
Oh no.
actually that I thought up.
A restaurant.
Yeah. I was thinking the inn from the
Okay.
beginning.
Mhm.
They could just put that onto like the Grand Floridian or something,
I worried over
and
nothing.
it'd be like a full character dining experience.
Mm-hmm. That'd be great.
Like I think it'd be sick. You could even have the windows be the same. I think it'd be so much fun.
Yeah, I said it. Every attraction at the parks could be Treasure Planet.
Should they be treasure?
Yeah.
That's what we really need.
So, but really, if they did a Guardians ride for Treasure Planet, they could show people the entire movie in the ride, just kind of quick.
Agree. Yeah. Also, Kingdom Hearts needs Treasure Planet to be involved in some way.
Absolutely.
Like it
If
should
you want to
happen.
hear what
It
we have to
already
say on
feels
that,
like-
we
I
got
don't
an
care.
episode for YouTube. Look it up.
Yeah, we did already talk about that. But like honestly, I mean, just the fact that so much of it happens in space, it would just fit so naturally in the game to just kind of be on the gummy ship, going from one planet to the next, and then boom, we're just gonna have a little side adventure with the Jim Hawkins. Why
I
not?
still think it's going to serve as a really good replacement
Yeah.
for the ship fighting in Pirates to just do in space with Treasure Planet. Fighting off Heartless.
I agree. Do it. Square Enix, you're listening. We know you are. Okay. Thank you, Deeper. Obviously, the big one to me is just John Silver as a mentor. He was good and evil kind of at the same time, just like all humans are. You know, a lot of times you see the mentors. I mean, even in Hercules, like Phil was kind of selfish, but he was a good mentor. He was a good person who was a mentor. And that's usually what we get. You very seldomly get a character as nuanced as John Silver, who has all this like greed and he's a pirate and he's actually one of the villains, but then he sees this in someone else and that makes him want to be better. And it's an interesting dynamic because I think that's a lot like actual discipleship. If we're going to like church stuff where like, yes, let's just pretend I am pouring into Christian. I am helping him. I'm mentoring him. I'm discipling him. But at the same time, I see something in Christian that holds me accountable, that makes me want to be better too. And you kind of see that here. And at the same time, you also have that sense of betrayal where John Silver did kind of completely threaten to undermine Jim in every single way. After telling him he had the making the greatness, he says, I didn't mean a word of it. And it's just kind of it's heart-wrenching. And you can't quite pin him down, which is all humans. But it opens up a lot of can of worms where you could talk about how there are mentors who have betrayed people and, you know, church hurt's a real thing, right? Like spiritual abuse is a real thing. And then there are mentors who are actively trying to do better and maybe they're not prepared to be mentors. And then there's just the whole, hey, yeah, all of your mentors are also humans. Will is my pastor. He is also a human. And sometimes it's hard for me to remember that Like it's like, oh yeah. Christian, you're in seminary. Open up this can of worms a little bit more so TJ can give us some final answers. He knows all things.
I mean, as someone who's had multiple mentors in the past leave them wanting at a certain point in time, it's a lesson I had to learn. And it's a lesson they never intended to teach, but it's one I had to learn. It's like, they are just as human as I am. And it's like when you have that surface level reading of, characters, historical people in the Bible, and you look at King David, and everyone starts with King David. He's such a good king. He does everything right. He loves God. But then when you actually read about King David on your own, you see the immense flaws he has. You see how he's not a good leader as a husband. You see him marry multiple wives and have multiple children and not rein them in. You have his lust. You have his desire for power. All that wrapped in. Yeah, we need to look at him a little more nuanced than we typically do. Same thing with our mentors. I've had some really great people in my life who've come up to me and have helped me realize what it means to be a man. I would not be here in the same way without them. Yet, they've also let me down immensely with their actions and how they've also treated me. So what am I supposed to do with that? Well, I take the good, I reject the evil, and I do everything in my power not to do the same when it is my turn to disciple someone.
Yeah, yeah. And then, see, it is hard because there are instances where I don't think this applies. So I want to put parameters on this conversation. If we're talking about like sexual abuse or like actual physical abuse or verbal, like any kind of abuse is not what we're talking about. If we're talking about just like mentors who are they're just humans, right? Like who have their own mistakes and maybe have their own agenda sometimes that they realize was wrong later on. Like there are parameters here for what we're talking about for me personally. Because if we were talking about all of that stuff, it would take several podcasts. We'd have to create a whole new show. It would be a spin-off series. It would be crazy. The John Silver podcast, though, I'm here for it. But of course, I think this was best said in Christian's favorite movie, The Last Jedi, when Yoda is talking to Luke and he makes the point, we don't just teach them from our success. We don't just teach them from what we've done right. We teach them from our failures. Like that is what we teach them the most, actually, is our failures. And I think that's a really important thing, is like that transparency and that ability to say, hey, I screwed up. And let me tell you how I screwed up, and to actually build off of that. And that's something that you kind of start to see hints of here, where like Silver does say he messed up. Like he kind of admits it, but he never fully commits to the bit of being a mentor. So it's kind of like, this movie leaves me really frustrated in a good way. Sometimes it's good to be frustrated because that's reality.
The Last Jedi, I committed to that message. Like Treasure Planet, that's a good movie.
TJ?
Treasure Planet's perfect. I will take this time, what we have left, to point out something I feel like not a lot of people actually notice about Treasure Planet, which is a big part of the story is that Jim, this whole adventure, this whole desire of Jim's is a response to the trauma that he has from his dad leaving him. And we see that. It shows you that in the montage where him and Silver are establishing that bond. But it makes it fairly apparent that Jim wants to do this because it's something that happened to him. He has to know what was worth it. He has to go find out, leave home, what was worth abandoning him. And then he has to go through that again with Silver. And it's much faster. And it's much more harsh because it just kind of happens immediately. He's sitting in a barrel, and from his perspective, it's like, oh, Silver just lied. He's just using me, which is not the case. He was lying to the other pirates.
About lying.
Yeah. So I just like that a lot. And a lot of people miss it because the song is too good for them to notice.
So do they how do they address this trauma though? Like he goes to see this because he's traumatized. Does he ever make amends or get any kind of closure?
Movies about.
Yeah, but he just kind of gets betrayed. They find out the guy is actually not as bad as he thought, and then goes back home.
Sort of. They don't go over it explicitly, but he kind of reconciles that with his adventure, and then he realizes what he cares about, what he actually cares about this whole time, is his family and his relationships, because he found the treasure.
Which Silver has become a part of.
It didn't matter.
In his own weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And part of that is he's willingly letting his father figure go this time because he knows that's where he's supposed to be, versus the one that abandoned him because of whatever.
Yeah. So, in a weird way, is the movie kind of saying you don't need a father figure? You just need your family. And if your father doesn't want to be a part of it, then you don't need that? Is that kind of what it's getting at?
Well, I think it's not saying you don't need a father figure. It's saying you might be saying your father figure doesn't have to be your father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But family's more important than treasure?
I think relationships, not strictly family.
Genuine relationships,
Yeah. But also, yo-ho, A Pirate's Life for me.
of course.
Yeah, I thought that was the main point.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap this one up because it's time for me to wrap this one up. We will be doing a bonus question. It might just be Christian and TJ. They will be asking, would you rather have one of the vehicles, robots, or creatures from this film in real life? But before we do that, we want to give a recommendation. My recommendation is just going to be read George MacDonald. Going back to that from the beginning. Yeah. Read George. All right, Christian.
I recommend a movie I watched not too long ago called Arcadian, which is a Nicolas Cage film. Basically, after the end of the world, these photophobic creatures are killing people in the night, and it's about him and his sons trying to survive in that world. Really great movie.
I'm pretty sure that was called The Chronicles of Riddick.
TJ, you have
Cage
a
wishes.
recommendation for everybody? Also, read Treasure Island. It's a really good book. TJ.
Read the novelization of
I
Treasure
recommend-
Island.
I recommend you watch Treasure Planet.
I then get the
Mhm.
audiobook for Treasure Island because it's pretty good too. There's actually a few. I don't know which one I have, but I like it. Anyway, guys, thank you again to our supporters. Today we're going to do a shout out to Trip Fuller, but remember you can also support the show on Patreon, Captivate, or Apple Podcasts if you would like your own shout out. Of course, another way that's a lot freer, if you want to just help the show for free, you can go to Spotify, hit the 3 dots, go to where it says rate the show, leave us 5 stars. That helps other people find the show. Go to Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom where it says rate and review. Also helps other people see the show. But what helps other people see the show the most is if you're on your computer or laptop and you want to go to podchaser.com and rate and review us there. For some reason, the algorithms like Podchaser more than the other things sometimes. Not really sure why, but it helps. So, that'd be cool. Also, remember this is part of our Disney Era series. So if you want to see the rest of the series, there's a link down below. Our next episode will be out of the Disney Renaissance, the Disney post-Renaissance era. We'll be into what's not technically an era. We're going to be doing some of the Disney home videos because it has its own part in Disney history, even though it's not technically an era. But hey, tune back in. We'll talk about that next time. And remember, we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
Hello, friends. If you enjoy systematic ecology, a great way to support us and to keep us moving forward into the future is to be a patron on our Patreon network. If you're a Patreon, then you get live access to our YouTube exclusives like Comic Book Ketchup and Manga Mustard, Drinks with Tejas, and also some extra content there with our companion series to go along with our annual theme. If you're a patron, you get exclusive merch like t-shirts and handbags and mugs. There's also a bonus extra question that has extra content. In each episode, we go deeper into our faith and the questions that we're wrestling with, but we also do this extra question to jump in and share about, and patrons get to hear how we answer that question. There's discounts on our store. You get access to any future online D&D campaigns. You can easily access all of our Patreon content through our Spotify page where it says exclusive content for subscribers. That could be you folks. And all that being said, you get the satisfaction that you help us keep the lights on and keep us moving forward with our software, our marketing, our equipment, staying current in the podcast game. We love systematic ecology. We hope you do too. Support us moving forward. Thank you for all that you are. We know there's a lot of great choices and content out there, and you choose to listen to systematic ecology. Thanks, folks. We love you. Peace.
If you love our show, you can follow the whole network in a single feed on Spotify at Anazara Ministry Podcast or the network page on Apple Podcasts. There you'll find shows like The Homely, The Whole Church Podcast, My Seminary Life, Let Nothing Move You, Dummy for Theology, The Bible After Hours, as well as mine and my husband's show, The Clydes, where my husband Taylor and I go through weekly discussions in a devotional conversational method to help us all get closer to one another and God.